So here's the cover for the book that you can order on Amazon. 7 PerView Coaching Steps Will Change Your Life. Yes, by myself and Grace Ann. And I lowered the price to $37 from what it was. Decided not to make it fundraising, and that's for the hardcover. The soft cover will be out tomorrow, and Kindle's up there for a little under $8. So what I'm going to do is just talk a little bit. I'm already late for the meeting, so these times are all off. And you think you need to know about Bergson and Heidegger. It's not about linear time. It's not about keeping the clock time. But they'll give you an idea of the agenda. I'll talk about Heidegger and Bergson, and then we'll have one or two breakouts, or we'll just talk together. Now, this is the chart I wanted to show you that is in. I got you links to both books, by the way, that are in the lesson plan that I sent you. I'm going to send you another one that'll have this chart because I kept working. You know me. Anyway, so here is from Heidegger, Introduction to Metaphysics. And you notice I put the word appearance because they put some other word. I'm not going to use it because it's just wrong. The word that Heidegger uses for the relation of being and appearance, and that's the futuring, is appearance. He uses the word appearance. I'll talk about it and what it means. And then there's the becoming out of the past into being. Then both Heidegger and Bergson look at the ought. There was the ethical and the relation to being. And for Bergson, it's more of a Immanuel Kant, and for as an external thing like the commandments, that are external to us. And we're under that notion of the commandments if you're into Judeo-Christian or Muslim even. Anyway, so, but for the ought of Heidegger, that notion of the ethics of care is part of the being process. And then you have becoming and thinking, the ways of thinking. And as I said, we're very interested in the heart of care. Now, here's some just overview. I'll be really quick, and you can read the books for yourself. Why is there something rather than nothing? That is the question that goes all the way through book by Heidegger, Introduction to Metaphysics. And he's concerned with being, which is sein, and not being of entities. And he reclaims what he thinks is pre-Socratic thought of Heraclitus and Parmenides. Heraclitus was all about becoming. Parmenides was all about being as an entity of being. And Heidegger objected to that notion of being as its own entity. Heidegger argues that metaphysics has forgotten being and reduced it to technological calculative thinking and made it an entity. The methodology is called ontological. We're not going to go into that today, but Dasein, sort of their being, would be the direct translation. Human being who questions their being, and using unconcealment to do so. Now, Heidegger and Bergson offer distinct frameworks, as I said in the introduction, and the horizon of being versus duration. So Heidegger, horizon of being, and duration, a certain eventness over a number of moments. That's the way that Bergson approaches it, although he approaches it very qualitatively, as we'll see. Historicality in Heidegger, again, is that primordial notion of birth to death of one's life. The everydayness, contextualized practical engagement with tools and projects, etc. Being a futurity, the future, oriented towards possibilities. That's why it would be really important to coaching and clients to help them with the future that is arriving of possibilities, and pointing out in restoring different kinds of possibilities. Then you have Heidegger. It is very critical of Bergson's, not in this introduction of metaphysics, but if you read between the lines, he is. Bergson never mentions the word future in his book or essay on the introduction to metaphysics, where Heidegger mentions it, I think it's 16 times. Durée is what Bergson talks about, the duration of an event. And a little bit, neither one of them are excited about Aristotle's time. So I'm going to skip some of this. I think the main point about Bergson is he's into intuition. So as coaches, we are looking at intuition often when we frame our questions. Bergson is a critical of a science notion of space and time. And his notion is creative evolution, where Heidegger anchors Dasein, which is their being, in the existential. Okay, so I think we got most of the rest of that that's important. Let's see if there's anything else. For Heidegger, the ethics of care is very important. Being thrown into whatever past we have, fallenness into the present, and projecting into the future, although he doesn't break them out in any kind of segmented way. Let's see, we mentioned that. So a little chart that you compare the method, but a lot of that's too deep for what I want to do. So we'll go right to coaching. The PerView method has 7 steps of the processes of embodied restoring, and the view, the vibrations, the inside thoughts and emotions, or energy rating and waves. So again, those are in the book or at the website. Here's another table, more annotated, comparing this and relevance to coaching. So time, Heidegger is the future is part of it. Bergson, the duration of time, but nothing about the future. Both are non-chronos, in other words, not beginning, middle, end. So very helpful for trauma integration. Heidegger aids confronting existential crises, and also very focused on authenticity of one's language and action. The method of access is language for Heidegger, intuition for Bergson. Bergson, intuition complements what I do in sand trail. I haven't shown this group much of it. The horse feedback, somatic sensing. Heidegger is more about listening and aligning deep storytelling inquiry, more kairotic or kairos moments. And the view of the self with Dasein, being in the world, always already embedded in meaning, and we're unconcealing to get at our authentic or true self. For Bergson, that's coming through the duration of moments and our intuitions. Heidegger would support the externalizing, showing clients how they shaped their historical thrownness. Bergson resonates more with the step 3 and with step about sympathizing and strategizing. So that's something we talked about yesterday in strategizing versus empathy, and I think you would find more empathy probably with Heidegger. Language is a key thing in the House of Being for Heidegger. Language is limited, and it's more metaphysical, intuitive insight, etc. Relates to rehistoricizing. Bergson reminds us that some client truths emerge beyond words. Useful in step 1 of characterizing. Heidegger uses a more poetic approach. Let's see, healing potential, authentic confrontation, healing through reconnection, and Heidegger can support clients facing voids or the abyss. And as you know, in coaching, our approach to coaching, we don't go down into the abyss, but we do give it an externalization label. Bergson offers tools for returning to embodied rhythmic life. Together they offer, I'm talking about Bergson and Heidegger, kind of a yin-yang of deep presence and active becoming. Let's see, big insight. Heidegger's gift is the return of attunement. Attunement to fear, anxiety, turbulence, that sort of thing, but also attunement to care, to understanding, etc. Bergson helps us feel our way back into ourselves, moving from stuck trauma loops to creative evolution, more of a spiral approach is what I'm reading in it. That's my interpretation. And then relevance to quantum physics. So they were both writing around the time when quantum physics started to come into being, with the double slit experiment being very controversial in the 1920s. Both of them are not into chronological schedules. Both have a focus, balance, flow. These are words we find often in the coaching things we do. Transformation of the field of living. And that brings us to vicissitudes of words. Words change and betray and conceal. And for example, the word focus can lose its meaning in overuse in a person's life or in society's life. What being are we forgetting when we coach with cliches? What being are we forgetting when we quote? So cliches is an example of a vicissitude word phrase that through overuse loses its meaning. And as coaches, we're often trying to figure out. So name a word that's overused in the coaching, put it in the chat, and I'm coming off the screen. Okay, so it turns out the word success can mean, in the general definition, the achievement of goals, a favorable outcome, wealth and status, recognition and admiration. So we kind of know all that. Personalized, daily victories, impact on society, happiness and fulfillment, all about success. Historically, the literal meaning from the Latin successus, the result or outcome, historically referred to the outcome, good or bad. The obsolete usage of the word success means what happens or the conclusion of events, regardless of its nature. And then we have synonyms, triumph, victory, achievement, prosperity, accomplishment. Culturally, some equate it with material gain. Others see it as spiritual growth or inner peace. Professional settings, it might mean career advancement or innovation. So it's a very multifaceted word, the word success. So I'll turn it to you, Joy. What do you think of this word success?
Well, it is a highly multifaceted word. And one of the first questions.
So thank you for tuning in to Unthinkment.com. Today, we've explored the relationship of Henry Bergson's approach and Martin Heidegger's approach to metaphysics. We came down with some understandings of, such as the word success, that has multifaceted meanings to many people, and we heard from Joy Harris, our success coach, who's going to come next week, fully prepared to dive into success, as long as she doesn't have an appointment. The following week, Sabine Trofimo will look at language from a number of different philosophical points of view, and she will actually read those. She won't be using AI, won't be cheating with an AI. So, and if you want to know more about Unthinkment.com and how to get here, go to Unthinkment.com and you'll find out when and where and how to log in, or contact me, davidbogie@gmail.com. And it's been a wonderful session. I want to thank everybody, and thank you very much.